Assalamu alaikum! Welcome to Z&D Academy course summaries. Make sure to subscribe, like, comment, and share. So today we're jumping right into this beautiful explainer on staying upon the straight path. We're breaking down a really profound lecture by Dr. Abu Zaid Maki al-Karoubi into a clear visual journey. You know, our whole mission here is to make authentic Islamic knowledge totally accessible, helping you pick up key Arabic concepts while really grounding your understanding of the deen as a beginner.
All right, let's dive into the roadmap for today. We're going to use one single super powerful metaphor to explain all of this, a straight line. We'll be covering the straight path, Sunnah versus innovation, the reality of the 73 sects, navigating groups and parties, our core sources of belief, and finally, the correct methodology. Let's get into it.
Starting right at the absolute foundation. Section 1. The straight path, or al-Sirat al-Mustaqim.
This hadith from Abdullah bin Masud perfectly captures the core idea of our entire explainer. The Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, literally drew a straight line right there in the sand. Then he drew lines branching off to the right and to the left. He pointed to that center line and said, "This is the path of Allah." But then he pointed to those diverging lines and gave a serious warning. On every single one of those side paths, there is a devil calling people towards it. So, what's the takeaway here? Islam is that single straight line. Any deviation at all, no matter how well-intentioned you might think it is, basically pulls us down a side path led by misguidance.
Moving right along to Section 2. Sunnah versus innovation. So, to stay glued to that center line, we have to follow the Sunnah. Now, when we say Sunnah in this specific context, think of it as the main highway. It's the pristine, complete way of life that was brought by the Prophet and perfectly modeled by his companions. It literally covers everything, right? Your beliefs, your acts of worship, your character. If you're on the Sunnah, you are standing right on that straight line drawn in the sand.
Actually, the Sheikh clarifies a super common but honestly fascinating confusion about this word sunnah. It essentially has two different contexts depending on how you're using it. In matters of pure religion and worship, sunnah is the direct opposite of bid'ah, which means innovation. But, and this is key, when you're talking about history and leadership after the Prophet passed away, sunnah contrasts with Shia. So in that second historical context, a person from al-Sunnah is someone who affirms the rightful succession of Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, and Ali, in that exact order of merit.
Right, so let's jump back to that first context. What exactly is bid'ah? Think of bid'ah, or innovation, as taking an unauthorized exit off that main highway we just talked about. By definition, it means inventing a brand new matter in the religion, whether that's a core belief or a physical act of worship that was never legislated by Allah or His Messenger. It's basically trying to introduce a new way to worship Allah that the Prophet himself never practiced, even though he had the ability and the reason to do it back then. Now here is a crucial distinction we have to make because people get this mixed up all the time. There's a massive difference between worldly progress and religious innovation. Look at the contrast. Using a new microphone for the adhan or driving a car to the mosque, those are worldly tools. They're just matters of public benefit, totally allowed, absolutely fine. But inventing a completely new type of prayer or dedicating a random day to a newly invented religious festival, that is bid'ah. And it is strictly rejected. Why? Because the religion was already perfected in the time of the Prophet. It honestly doesn't need our modern little additions.
All right, having defined the path and the deviations, we arrive at Section 3, the reality of the sects.
I want you to really think about the number 73. This number is absolutely monumental in Islamic theology. The Prophet foretold that the Islamic Ummah, our global community of Muslims, would eventually split into exactly 73 distinct sects.
The Sheikh shares this pretty solemn hadith to show the historical progression of how religions divide over time. So the Jewish community divided into 71 sects, the Christian community divided into 72 sects, and the Muslim Ummah, we will divide into 73 sects. And the most sobering, heavy part of this prophecy is the Prophet stating that 72 of those groups are in the fire, meaning they wandered off down those side paths of misguidance. Out of all of them, only one single group remains steadfast on the straight line and makes it to paradise.
Which brings us to a really important Arabic term you should definitely know, al-Firqa al-Najiyah, or the Saved Sect. This term describes that one specific group saved from punishment. And why are they saved? It's simple, really. They just refused to leave the pure original Sunnah. They didn't go around inventing new things. They just stayed put on that straight line the Prophet drew in the sand.
But obviously, in today's world, we hear dozens of different names and movements, right? That brings us to Section 4, navigating groups, parties, and sects.
This breakdown is such a brilliant way to understand how division escalates, and it's a super vital framework, especially for beginners. We've got three terms here: Jama'ah, Hizb, and Firqa. Okay, a Jama'ah is just a group of people organized for a specific task, like a local mosque committee or a charity. Totally allowed, as long as their goal and their methods are lawful. But let's say that group starts demanding absolute blind loyalty to its own specific leader, or its internal rules, and they start disavowing other Muslims who don't join their club. Well, now they've escalated into a Hizb, a partisan faction. This is unlawful because it fractures the Ummah over worldly loyalties. Finally, if a Hizb unites not just on politics, but completely around a religious innovation, a bid'ah, they plunge into being a firqa, a full-on deviant sect. Remember, al-Sunnah is the ultimate Jama'ah. We are united upon the Sunnah itself, zero partisan loyalty, zero innovation required.
So how do you avoid becoming a deviant sect? You rely on an unbreakable chain. Let's look at Section 5, Sources of Islamic Belief.
To stay on that straight line, you have to make sure your spiritual GPS is only programmed with three specific inputs. First, the Holy Quran, the literal, direct words of Allah. Second, the authentic Sunnah, which are the rigorously verified traditions and actions of the Prophet. And third, Ijma, which is the unanimous consensus of the early, pious predecessors. It's pretty straightforward. If a religious belief isn't rooted in these three things, it simply isn't from the original religion.
And I love this simple, beautiful linguistic rule the Sheikh highlighted for reading these texts. Whenever you are reading these divine sources, you're essentially looking at one of two things. Either Allah is giving you news, like details about the Day of Judgment, the angels, or His divine attributes, which we have to believe with absolute certainty, zero doubts, or Allah is giving you a command, like establishing the prayer or fasting, which we must obey with pure sincerity without associating any partners with Him. News to believe, commands to obey. Simple as that.
Now you might be wondering, don't deviant sects read the exact same Quran? Yes, they do. The crucial difference is in how they understand it. That brings us to Section 6, the correct methodology of understanding.
Let's walk through this three-part methodology used by al-Sunnah. Step 1. You verify the text. We absolutely do not build our core beliefs on weak or fabricated hadith. Step 2, and honestly, this is where so many groups fall off the path. You must align your understanding of the text with how the Sahaba, the companions of the Prophet, understood it. You can't just invent some 21st century interpretation of a 7th century revelation that completely contradicts how the Prophet's own direct students understood it. Make sense? And step 3, you trust your intellect by recognizing that true, pure divine revelation is never, ever going to perfectly contradict sound human reason.
This whole process of verification and alignment is exactly why it's called the Salafi methodology, or al-Manhaj as-Salafi. Now, it's really vital to grasp that in this academic context, Salafi is not some modern political party or a hizb like we talked about earlier. Not at all. It's actually a timeless, protective filter. It is the framework of understanding Islam exactly as the Salaf, the first three favored generations of Muslims, understood it. It literally protects our modern minds from corrupting ancient divine texts.
Just look at the stark difference in the scales here. For al-Sunnah, divine revelation is the ultimate scale. Every single human idea, modern philosophy, or cultural trend is placed on that scale to be weighed and judged. If it contradicts revelation, we toss it out. Innovators do the exact opposite. They make their own human philosophy, their desires, or their cultural norms the scale, and then they take divine revelation and try to twist it, stretch it, and misinterpret it just to force it to fit their worldly scale. It's completely backwards.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, we really have to look in the mirror regarding how we approach our deen. Will you use the intellect Allah gave you to humbly submit to His straight path, trusting His revelation over your own personal desires? Or will you use your intellect to arrogantly justify your own side paths? The choice is entirely up to you, but remember exactly where those side paths lead. To make sure you stay upon that straight line, to deeply understand your Aqeedah, and to build a rock-solid foundation for learning, we highly encourage you to enroll in the official Zad Academy curriculum today. Jazakumullahu khairan. May Allah reward you with goodness for hanging out with us on this explainer. Keep learning, keep growing, and we'll see you in the next one.